Hi, Sweet as Honey listeners. Our sponsor is the Pickleball Headquarters Chicken and Pickle. Chicken and Pickle is your go-to destination for all things family-friendly. Whether you're hitting the pickleball courts for some friendly competition, catching the big game with your friends, or enjoying brunch and yard games with your family, they have it all. Food, drinks, events, fun. Chicken and Pickle is the coolest backyard you'll never want to leave. Chicken and Pickle has locations nationwide and 2 right here in DFW. Text CNP Sweet as Honey to 43618 for a free shareable appetizer when you visit your nearest location.
This is Sweet as Honey, Season 2 with Taylor Jane Brown. Woo!
Welcome back to Sweet as Honey. Today we are bringing back a very special guest. We have Taylor Jane Brown on the podcast.
Yay!
The full name.
Full name, Taylor Jane Brown.
Full name. And I will give a fair warning. We're going to talk about some struggles with pregnancy today and her story. It's very beautiful and inspiring and will help a lot of you guys, but we're just going to put that out there in case you don't want to watch. But welcome, Taylor. I'm so happy to have you back.
Yay! I first want to start off with how proud I am of you.
Thank you.
I know leaving DCC is hard. Let me just say that out loud, that it is hard to go from like every single second of your day and every single second of your week and whatever is focused, especially when you're a leader. Like I have seen so many of the leaders go through like literally everything that you do has to be focused on DCC, and then to be all of a sudden like, oh, and we're done is wild. So I love that you've got this and you are helping so many people with it. And it's like my weekly thing now. I just watch. Like, Sweet as Honey, new episode, let's go.
You're always so supportive, and like I love when I see your name pop up on my phone because I'm like, she's just like there to encourage me in all of this, and it really does help because you're right. Like it is kind of a shock when you're done. You're like, okay, now what do I do?
You're like, now what?
Yeah, and like I do want to be as, impactful as I can. So when I get those messages, I'm like people appreciate it.
I'm so glad. I love it. I love that.
I love it. Well, I want to talk about your beautiful baby boy. You can
He's so
tell
cute.
us all about him. He's such a chunk.
He's so chunky. He's literally 4 months old and like 22 pounds right now, which is not normal. That's like a very big baby, but his name is Nolan. And he is just like the cutest, best, like happiest, sweetest. Like we just got really lucky. He's such a good baby. He sleeps well. He eats well. He eats really well. And it's just been such a blessing. Like becoming a mom is something that I always knew that I wanted.
Yeah.
Like since I was a kid, I was like, oh, Mom, I want to have kids. And she was like, oh, okay, pump the brakes. And so like, becoming a mom has just been like the greatest thing ever. And I will say at first, like when you first have your baby, like I was convinced like, oh, as soon as they come out, you're like obsessed with them. You like are a changed woman, and you are a changed woman. Like, let me just say, but it's weird because it's one of those, like, you assume that you're going to be obsessed with this baby when they come out because they've been with you for so long. And then they come out and you're like, who are you? I've never met you before.
Yeah.
And so it kind of takes a little bit. And at first I remember thinking like, shoot, do I not want to be a mom? Like, am I not going to love this as much as I thought I would? And then a few weeks went by and you're like, okay, I'm kind of getting the hang of things. Still have no idea what I'm doing. Right. To this day. No idea. But then like time goes by and you start to like see their personality come out. And now I'm just like literally obsessed with him.
Oh, I know. I always think about that, and I've heard so many people kind of say similar things, but I'm like, are you ever truly ready to welcome a new life into the world? And like, yes, you've been with them for 9 months, but it's this whole new person, and they're going to have a personality, and like, now it's your job to take care of them, and your world's flipped upside down. Like, it is kind of crazy.
I know. And I'm like, who said that like Brad and I could take care of a baby? I'm like, hey, we are now like his caretakers, and like one day he's gonna grow up and be like, hold on, I gotta call my mom and ask, and he's gonna be calling me. I'm like, no, why are you calling me?
Like, I still call my mom.
I'm like, wait, I still need to call my mother to ask her for advice. So the fact that like one day he's gonna be calling me is just like is wild.
I know. But if you think about it, it's like your parents did the same thing. Like they grow up as you grow up.
Oh, yeah. And like, I think that was something too that I was like, all right, Brad, we're just going to have to figure this out. Like,
yeah,
just going to have to pray, do our best. We pray with him every night. And it's so sweet. Brad is whenever people say like you fall more in love with your husband when you have kids, it's so true. He has been like from the day that we got home from the hospital, like running all over the place, because not only are you like taking care of your baby, like those first few weeks, like the baby and the mom are like this, like you were together all the time. But like, I also physically couldn't walk very well or at much, because you just had a freaking kid and he was a monster of a child, like little 10-pounder. So, ow. Yeah, no, I know. So like those first few weeks, I think is really telling of how strong your relationship is. And I'm so thankful that Brad and I have such a strong base because we were able to communicate on like, hey, I really need this from you. And I know that you're also tired, but like, I need you to do this. Or like, I can't do this. I need a minute. And I got mastitis a week in, which is an infection in like a clogged duct. Yeah. And let me just say that it is terrible.
I've heard, yeah.
Because I had 104 fever. I had, I was like shaking. I had chills. And mind you, the day that set in was the day that Brad was going back to work. So he was only able to stay home for like a week and a half, and then he had to go back to work.
Wow, that's short.
Yeah, and I still could like not really move around on my own. So that was wild, but like, I mean, our relationship has never been stronger.
Wow. Yeah, I'm sure it's very testing, and it's a lot of like give and take and just trying to make it work and get sleep at night. I mean, literally. I think it's so crazy and commendable. Like moms have a very hard job, and so do dads. I mean, it's all different for everyone, but like your body's trying to recover, and at the same time you might get an infection or there's complications, and so you've got like a million things on your mind, and you're like, I haven't slept, and what am I doing?
And now I'm like, I go to bed around like 10, 11, and then I wake up at like, 6 or 7, depending on when he wakes up. And like those first few weeks, if you would have told me I'd be sleeping that much, I'd be like, wow, that's amazing.
That's pretty good, yeah.
I woke up the other day and I was like, I'm so tired. And I was like, wait, like literally a month ago, I was like waking up every 3 hours, and it is crazy, like how quickly you also forget about the beginning because it's so hard. And it's crazy, like how quickly, like I think that we're just like built that way, that our like hormones take over and you just kind of go into this like power drive mode. And like, I really do think God protects our hearts and our minds through that time, because it can be really, really tough. And I mean, thankfully, like we have a good baby. He wasn't colicky. He didn't have tummy issues. He didn't, have all the things that like we now have friends that are struggling with. But, yeah, I think like I'm already like another one. Let's go. And Brad's like, calm down.
Calm down. How did like those 9 months where you're carrying him, like how do you prepare yourself mentally for what's about to come?
I think that you honestly like don't even know what it's going to be like until you're there. Yeah. Like you like are like, oh yeah, I'm going to have a little one, and like, oh my gosh, they're moving. And it's like, I think now going into like having our second child, whenever that happens, like I'll be like, okay, I'm gonna really soak up these like months of just having one, before I have another, and we go back into newborn mode. But like I've been around babies my whole life, but I had no idea what that was gonna be like, and I don't know if like anybody really does. I think preparing, like next time I will have like my little like cart next to my bed filled with all the things that I need ahead of time. I was painting the nursery, and he was born at 38 weeks. And I was like painting the nursery at like 36. And I'm like, I should not be doing this right now. Like I would much rather have like gotten all of that done ahead of time. And that's just my personality. Not everybody is that way. But I would have much rather like gotten things done ahead of time, been more prepared for them to be here, because once they arrive, like running around and grabbing all the things and preparing the house or whatever, like it's just not as easy. Right. So yeah, I think as far as preparing goes, it's just kind of like hope for the best.
Yeah. Cross your fingers.
Yeah, literally.
Well, he was definitely such a miracle and a blessing to you guys. And I want to kind of get into your story with trying to become pregnant and the loss and everything that you faced. So I'll let you take the reins on it and just tell your story.
So I guess I'll go through the timeline first, and then we'll kind of go back and talk more like details of like how it affected me mentally, emotionally, spiritually, all of that. But essentially, like, I'll go back to retirement way back when, you know, after retiring, I was like, you know, I think a lot of people when they retire, like, oh, hopefully I'll be an all-star, like, hopefully, like, I'll still be involved. And I ended up like not getting asked to be an all-star, which was really hard at the time. And so Brad and I were talking, and we were like, all right, what's next for us? We want to start a family. And I was like, yeah, sure, why not? Like, let's go for it.
Yeah.
And so we ended up trying. We got pregnant like pretty quickly, which was a huge blessing. And I know that's not the same story for everybody, but yeah, we were able to get pregnant pretty quickly, and I was so excited. Like, I wasn't ever sick. I wasn't ever like, I didn't have really any symptoms that were negative. Like, I just felt great. And so then at 10 weeks, you do your genetic testing, which is where you find out if there's like any like genetic issues, or you can find out the gender and all this stuff. And after we got that test, I was like, I'm so ready to like announce to the world. Like, I'm just so excited. I want everybody to know. And like, no part of me thought like, oh, like, what if something happens? You know, I'll have to like kind of take the word back. I'm just there like really excited for this pregnancy, and I want everyone to know. And so, you know, we did like this sweet surprise with like a little onesie for my mom and my brothers and Brad's family and everybody. And then we like posted on social media, and because of TikTok, like a lot of people knew. You know, it's not just my own Instagram, it's Peyton and I now, and we've got a like decent following there. So a lot of people knew, and it was amazing. Like, I was living my best life. I was like, I just retired. I'm now like pregnant, and we're starting a family. But then there was the other side of me that was like, none of my friends are pregnant right now. Like, I'm the only one of my friends going through this. And I was kind of like, here we go.
Yeah.
Like, I don't really know what I'm doing, but it's fine. And so that was at 10 weeks. At 11 weeks, I was at an event with Peyton, and that's when things like started going south. I got a phone call from my doctor, and I didn't realize this, but when you do your genetic testing, they give you a call. It's usually a nurse that calls you. And if it's your doctor, at least at my hospital, or like OBGYN office, if your doctor calls you, then that's usually like something is off. And so when she called me, I was like, hey girl, like, what's up? And she was like, hey, like, are you with Brad right now? You know, whatever. And she's like, the test came back inconclusive, which could mean a multitude of things. It could mean that something's off, or it could mean that it was a bad test because we did it at 10 weeks. And a lot of the time, offices, I guess, don't do it until 12. And I was like, okay. You know, at that point, I'm still just kind of like, there's no reason to be sad, so I didn't want to like stress myself out. And then at that event, I like felt something happening, and I was like, I need to go home. Like, it's happening right now. Yeah. And I like told Peyton, and I was like, I've got to go. She was like, okay, go. Well, the like event was like 30 minutes away from my house. So I'm driving home, and I'm like in pain, and all of this is happening. And then it like stopped once I got home. And that was not, I think that was stress induced. So that was not when I actually lost the baby.
Wow.
But I remember like calling my mom, and I told her, and I was sobbing. Like, I almost had to pull over because I was like crying so hard. And I got home. Brad and I were like, just like sitting together. We called the doctor, and they were like, okay, that wasn't it. Like, keep your feet elevated, you know, all the things. So then we were just like, okay, what's next? Went to the doctor's office, got things checked out. We still had a heartbeat. Like, things just seemed normal. Okay. And then we went to a specialist the following week because they couldn't get us in. That was like a Friday. They couldn't get us in. That was like the soonest they could get us in. So I was like, okay, just sit around and wait, like hope for the best. And then at the specialist, that's when we found out that the baby had something called holoprosencephaly, which essentially means like our brains are split into two, and they're like, I don't know how big our brains are, but like, you know, and at that point, like our baby's brain should have split into two and filled up the entire like cranium.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At that point, the baby's, you know, head should have been, or brain should have been formed. Yeah. And our baby's brain was like half the size, only one piece. Like it just had not developed. So that was at 12 weeks then that we saw the specialist. And he was like, these babies essentially don't make it. And if they do make it through the pregnancy, then they're not going to make it more than like a few hours, you know, maybe a day or two. So we were like, okay. And so then I just remember he was like, you guys, there's nothing, like I remember he said to me specifically, there's nothing that you could have done to cause this, and there's nothing that you can do to like prevent this from happening. This was going to happen one way or another. There's like a less than 1% chance of this in all babies, in all pregnancies. And he was like, this is not having to do with your body. Like it's not a pregnancy infertility thing. This is just like bad luck, essentially. And so I don't think that I realized in the moment how much that, like him saying that to me was going to affect me. But later on, like trying to get pregnant again, that's like the only thing that gave me hope or like comfort. So then a few days later, we lost the baby, and I was like, I've never struggled with anxiety or depression. That's something that runs in my family, but I've never personally struggled with it. And I like can't explain to you how I was like sitting on the couch, and you know me, like I have a very talkative personality. Like I like to be out and about, and I was like sitting on the couch, like not talking, like watching TV all day. I'd get up, go to the couch, not really eating much. Like it just was not good for me. And it was completely opposite from where I normally am at. And that's also when I started having like major panic attacks, because like the trauma of losing a baby, people don't talk about, but like that is like a very traumatic thing for your body to go through, and like mentally and emotionally for you to go through. And so I was like having panic attacks where I like couldn't catch up on my breathing, and I just couldn't like calm down at all. And that's never happened to me in my life. And so, you know, not only are we going through that, but like your hormones too, like are going all over the place. And now looking back, like my hormones then and my hormones postpartum were pretty similar. But you know, this time I had Nolan to look at, and that time I was just by myself. So that was really hard. I think that it was like probably 2 solid weeks where I was just like a shell of a human being. And then I was like, I need to like have people come and visit me. Like I need to spend time with people. And I had to go back to work too, because this was during the school year. So I went back to work. We lost the baby on a Wednesday, and I wasn't at work that entire week. And then I went back to work, I think the following Tuesday. And I basically emailed my entire staff, which like I'm so close with everyone at my school, so this wasn't like a weird thing, but I told all of them, I told the team leaders of each grade, I was like, I don't want anyone to talk about it. I don't want anyone to give me a hug. I don't want you to do anything but treat me completely normal. Because when you go through that and your whole world is wrecked, you don't want to show up to your one normal thing and have everyone be like, oh, I'm so sorry. Like, how are you? You know, obviously, unless I was like, I need to talk about it. Right. But that was the biggest blessing, is that I was able to go to work, get my mind on something else and just focus on something else. And then Peyton would come into my room at the end of the day, and I would just like lose it. But still, like I was able to put my focus in something else and not just on that. Yeah. So yeah, then we did our best to like continue on. We prayed a lot. Like I don't think I've ever prayed as much as we did then ever in my life. But then a month and a half later, we found out that we were pregnant again. And at first I was like, oh no, like immediate. I think people ask me, like, the number one question I get all the time is like, how was your like stress and anxiety with the second pregnancy? Mm-hmm. And I was very stressed, but I was like, you know what? Like, exactly what that doctor told me, like this, it's out of my hands. Mm-hmm. Like, God's plan for our first baby was going to happen, whether we wanted it to or not, whether we planned for that, whether we caused it or not. And the same thing for this baby. Like, mm-hmm. Nolan was going to thrive, or something was going to happen and we were going to have another loss, mm-hmm. you know? And I hate to, that's kind of what I tell people when they ask me that, is I'm like, there is nothing that you can do. Obviously, like, treat your body well when you're pregnant. Do the best that you can be.
Yeah.
But there is nothing that you can do to change the story, right. you know, and what's going to happen. And I think that there's a lot of purpose in the pain that we go through. Mm-hmm. And I think that's something that, like, I had to keep focusing on. Is like, okay, we now have a baby and I need to get to like this checkpoint. And then we got to that checkpoint where we found out the gender. And then I was like, all right, the next checkpoint is the anatomy scan, where like the same specialist as before was able to look at like his hands, feet, his heart, his brain. And he was like, this is a perfect baby. Like, mm-hmm. one of like structurally, everything is perfect. Everything is wonderful. And so like, as we hit every checkpoint, I was like, okay, like, I think that this one's actually going to make it. Mm-hmm. But there was always like, even at 35 weeks when we could have had the baby.
Fear,
yeah. Like, there's always going to be that fear.
Yeah.
And you just have to trust that, like, at this point, it's out of my hands, mm-hmm. you know?
Yeah, it truly is like a miracle for it to all happen smoothly, mm-hmm. and the mom and the baby be healthy.
I mean, I've been a Christian my whole life, but like, I don't understand like how I couldn't believe in Jesus after mm-hmm. like being pregnant and going through everything. Like, mm-hmm. the fact that we were able to get pregnant that quickly too, yeah, is such a blessing.
It is, yeah.
And then the fact that like your body, like your organs literally move out of the way, mm. and your body is like,
it's wild.
It's crazy. And your body like fully like is like reconstructed so that you can grow a human inside of you, and you're mm-hmm. able to feed this human, and then you give birth to this human, and your body's like, okay, now we got to start making food. Like, yeah. It is
so
absolutely wild what our bodies do, and yeah. how also like how things have to align mm-hmm. perfectly for us to have a kid.
Yeah.
So.
And it's crazy, just like, one, the emotional and physical trauma that your body goes through, mm-hmm. like creating a child or losing a child. Like, mm-hmm. there's so much emotions and stress on your body no matter what.
Yeah.
So then, like, for you to have gotten pregnant so quickly, like, it's crazy that your body can even do that amidst, like, the stress of everything, you know? And I know a lot of people struggle just with, like, the fear of it, or mm-hmm. just feeling like their body has failed them, or it will fail them, or whatever it is. Like, and that even puts stress on yourself, you know? Yeah. And then it's harder for it to happen sometimes. Mm-hmm. Like, everybody's journey is so different, like so many waves of emotions. And it, like you said, like, it's so out of your control. And like, it's never, you know, your fault if you're doing like what you can to take mm-hmm. care. Like, it's just going to happen the way it's supposed to happen.
Yeah.
But I think it's so hard, from what I've heard, of like people to like kind of accept that, because you just feel like, I'm the one.
Yeah. You're like, I'm a woman. I should be able to carry a child, you know, like that's like, it feels like that is like what I should be able to do. And so when your body isn't able to do that, you're kind of like, oh, mm-hmm. like, what's wrong with me? But the reality is, like, I mean, I was reading the other day, actually, the statistics on like loss during pregnancy. It's mm-hmm. 1 in 4 pregnancies.
Yeah, that's what I thought. It's super low.
Yeah. Like, not even just like 1 in 4 women, but 1 in 4 pregnancies, which already for me, like, we're at that statistic,
right?
You know, and that's insane to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that people used to talk about it as much as they do now, mm-hmm. which, like, when I ended up posting, because that was another aspect, is we had already told the world that we were pregnant.
Yeah.
And so we had to come back and be like, never mind, you know, and like that was emotionally draining, because then you also have people that like didn't see the post about, okay, we lost the baby. And so I had people coming up to me in person being like, oh my God, congrats. Like, I heard that you're pregnant like a week after we lost the baby. And I was like, actually, no. And then I always felt bad because people feel terrible when that's then.
Right.
But I mean, social media is brutal. And we had people on TikTok being like, no, you're still pregnant. Like, I know you are. And I'm like, I don't need to convince you that I'm not.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like I really don't need to. Or people like would comment on videos like, what happened to the baby? Isn't she still pregnant? And like so just kind of so
unaware.
out of touch and unaware. And like, you know, I'm not somebody that's gonna like go on social media and be like, listen, you little rats, like stop.
You little rats.
But there was a couple times where I like went on and was like, I'm telling y'all that it is incredibly hurtful when you make these comments.
Right.
And that's something that I like did want to make a little PSA. Unless a woman is on the table giving birth to a child or talking to you about how she's pregnant, you should never, ever ask her if she's pregnant or talk about like anything having to do with that. It's, I know that that's something too that like I had to learn. I don't think that I realized that, like how harmful it can be to somebody that's going through a loss, going through whatever. Yeah. But like it is so hurtful when you're wanting to be pregnant so bad and somebody's like, no, like I see a bump, and you're like, nope, actually I just had Taco Bell. Like, you know, or like, you know, we just got through a loss and everyone's like, no, you're lying, you're pregnant. And I'm like,
why would I lie
about that?
Like, that's
trust me, I would love to be pregnant.
No, I know. And I feel like the more that now that it is so talked about, or way more talked about, like I've just watched, you know, I'm like, just don't assume that somebody's not trying, or, you know, because like the natural thing to do when you have friends who are married and like stuff is just to kind of be like, oh, when you guys want to have kids?
When you want to have a baby.
And it's so, you know, pure, it's a pure question. Like nobody really asks it to be harmful, but you don't know like if this person has tried or has already lost it. Like it's just very sensitive. And so I'm like hesitant to ever bring it up unless somebody initiates it or confides in you about it and stuff. And then still with that, it's like, it is like you kind of walk a fine line of like what to ask and what not to. And I feel like the best thing you could do is just like listen and let them tell you what they want to tell you, but like just be there for them. And I don't know. It's hard. It is really hard. And it's so common. Like, I feel like more than not, like, I've just heard so many stories. And so it's wild. And it's crazy, like, to just see your little blessing in front of you now. And, like, the journey that it took to get there. Yeah. You know, like, that
was something else, too, is, like, the 1 year anniversary of losing our baby was in April. And I was more emotional on that day than about like losing a baby, I think, because I now know what we lost. You know what I mean? Like beforehand, not that I like didn't realize that it was a baby. I knew that. But now that I have my own child to look at, I'm like, oh my God, like that was a human being in my stomach and that is no longer with us anymore.
Yeah, it's part of you.
And I think that was something that I wasn't expecting at all.
And I think, like, being a believer and knowing, like, you'll get to meet that child one day and, like, you know where they are is the hope you have to hold on to. And like you said, it's, like, it's hard not to believe in Jesus when you experience what a miracle that is. But, like, knowing that he cares and he's taking care of that child that, like, you haven't met, but, like, he created. And that's, like, comforting, I'm sure, to just know. But it doesn't make it less hard.
Or I guess I understand where, you know, people in this world, we live in a sinful world. It's a hard place to be. Like, if I didn't believe in Jesus, I think that I would be obviously not the person that I am today. But the best way that I can, like, share my faith about in like my life and my belief in Jesus is not to sit here and like tell you you need to, but it's like, look at this story, like look at this journey, and how do you not believe in Jesus after seeing like the miracle that Nolan is? Yeah. You know, and I think that's, I guess, the message that I've like really tried. I've been more on social media recently, talking to my phone like by myself. Yeah. And after we like went through the whole thing of like posting on social media and then having to be like, wait, we're not pregnant anymore, I had a lot of people asking me like, are you going to keep the second one or like your next pregnancy like a secret longer, or what are you going to do? And I didn't. I like told the world like pretty consistently with like the first time. And I think for me, it was just like that understanding again of like, if this baby is going to like be born, then wonderful, but I'm not going to change that path. Like I'm not going to change the story. So for me, I was like, I want to tell my people so that they can be there for me one way or another. Yeah. And then, and like, and then if we tell social media and something happens, then it is what it is. Yeah.
I'm just curious, like, did you struggle with ever being angry, like, at God or anything like that? Just knowing, like, I don't know, I feel like people are like, you know, why did I have to go through this? Like, anything else hard, like a trial that's unfair and hard in life. Like, do you feel like you had any of those emotions?
I don't know if I felt as, like, angry with God, but I more so just started doubting, like, will I ever have a family? Yeah. Like, that was kind of, like, more of what it was. Like, I just started fully doubting, like, God's ability to give me another miracle. Yeah. You know? And I think, I think that it was more of that. Because I'm really, really grateful that one of, like, my, I think, best qualities, and I hate like talking about myself, but it kind of runs along with this, but like one of my best qualities is the ability to process hard things and like talk about my emotions and all of that. And I think part of that has to do with how my mom raised me, and part of that has to do with being a teacher, because you're literally talking about processing emotions all day long. You know, you're like, oh, that was hard, how are we going to move forward, or you know, whatever it is. So it kind of it forces you to like do that with yourself. Yeah. And I think that when it came to this, I was able to really easily verbalize where I was coming from. And like for Brad and I in our relationship, like he was also struggling, but everyone's always focused on the mom. Yeah. And so we were talking and I was like, you know, this is how I'm feeling. And it was so therapeutic to talk through everything. And Brad is such a man of God that he was like, all right, let's take it to Jesus. Like, let's pray about it. Let's like lift our baby up in prayer. And we'd be praying and like sitting there holding each other, just sobbing. But it was like, God is going to give us a family one day. Yeah. Like, we just know that he is. So I think that it was just more of like, is that really going to happen? Or am I just going to like, is this the end of our family journey for us? So.
And you've experienced loss before, and we've talked about that on your other episode. But you've gotten through a lot of hard things. And you've had your faith to lean on, and you've had Brad, like, supporting you through that. But I think it's probably something, too, where, like, you know you're going to be okay, and you know God cares about your emotions through it. And, like, you've had to process a lot before, and it makes you kind of stronger in those moments when you've been down a road of loss before. Yeah. But
yeah. Because when we lost my dad, I was 19, I think. And that's what we talked about last time. And that was really hard. And I'm still processing that. Like, you know, like every big life change, you like go through another season of grief, I think. And, you know, like even just like with losing the baby, like I can't sit and say one was harder than the other, but I do think losing a baby is just like a whole nother level of hard that I never have experienced in my life. But like I've seen God work in my life so many times through like different hardships that I've faced that I'm like, I know that I'm going to be okay.
Yeah.
You know, and John 13:7 is my favorite Bible verse. I think it is one of the most like hopeful Bible verses that I've ever heard. It's you don't understand now what I'm doing, but someday you will. And like, I fully recognize now where like losing my dad at that age has impacted me, and that not that there's like a silver lining to loss.
Right.
But I do think that like kind of what I said earlier, that there's purpose in the pain. And then my ability to process things and then like reflect on, you know, whatever that is. I have seen how that's helped so many people. After I lost my dad, there was like 3 or 4 of my friends that lost a parent within the next like 2 years.
Wow.
And I was able to help them talk through things. And on social media, there's so many people in my DMs like, hey, like we're trying right now for our second, but we just like lost one of our babies and I am at a loss.
Yeah, you're able to empathize with people.
Yeah, and I think that that is, if there's like a silver lining to going through hard things, like now me being able to help people is not at all making anything worth it, but it's making it, I don't know, I guess I just am seeing the purpose in it now.
Yeah, really good. I love, it's just a theme that we talk about on the podcast, but like every trial, you know, kind of, I think that was our podcast with you last time, like turning your mess into your message and pointing it to God and giving him praise through it all and helping others. Like that's the purpose of all of it. And strengthening your faith along the way. Like we're meant to go through hard things to do that. And it's not easy. But
no. And I wish, like, I think people assume that Christians are like, oh, because I love God, like nothing's going to happen to me and things are perfect. And that could not be further from the truth.
Yeah, no.
Literally, God is like, no, you will go through hard things.
But
and
now you have me.
Yeah. And now you have me, and I can like lead you along the right path and trust me that you're going to get to the other side. And I mean, if I didn't believe in Jesus, there's no way that we would have been able to get through the last year.
Yeah.
At all.
So how did it look when you started to try again? How, like, what were your emotions? How did that go for you guys? Did you want to start right away? Or?
So yes and no. I think losing our first baby really proved to us like, okay, we really like want to have a family right now. But anytime that we would like get intimate with each other, it was like, in my head, I was like, intimacy equals baby, and I would have a panic attack. And so we both had to step back and be like, okay, how can we almost like disconnect that equivalency of like baby and intimacy equal each other?
Yeah.
And we had to just focus on like building our relationship back. And so it wasn't like being intimate to have a baby, but being intimate to build our relationship and be a married couple and
show love
just
to
try
each
to,
other.
And so I think that was like shifting that mindset helped so much. And it took the pressure off of us too. So then like we got pregnant a month and a half later, you know, and like that I never thought would be the case because I was assuming like the stress of trying would be affecting us, but then changing that mindset helped change the purpose of it, I guess, you know?
I've honestly never really heard it talked about like that, but I think it's so good that you're bringing light to it because, it's like I could easily see it becoming something where it's like, we have to do this because we have, this has to be the result. Yeah. Versus just like the purpose of it and getting closer with your spouse and stuff. And I'm sure it does like just take the pressure off when you can shift your mindset into that and focus on each other. But yeah, I'm glad you said that.
Yeah, it was hard. And then when we got pregnant, like I said, it was stressful. But I think if you are somebody that's like going through that or you're wanting to start a family, like shifting your focus from starting a family to just building your relationship is huge for sure.
How many kids, like, do you want to have?
I really want 4.
Do you? Okay.
Brad's like, Taylor, oh my God. But I'm like, I love kids. I've always loved kids. I've always like, that is just my entire heart. And especially now that I've had one, I'm like, oh gosh, let's fill the house.
Full house.
Yeah. But I think 3 is our like, okay, we'll have 3. And then Brad's like, if we can afford it, because kids are also expensive. He's like, if we can afford it and we're at a place in our life where we can make that happen, okay. And that's also if God blesses us with that many kids. Like if anything, I've learned that like it is fully out of our control if I haven't said that enough.
Right. You don't plan. It
No.
just,
So I would love to have 4.
Yeah. Love it.
A full house.
Full house.
Brad's like, oh gosh, we'll need to get another car. I'm like, yeah, why not? Everybody has a buddy.
You got to get a van or something.
Yeah, literally.
Minivan.
I'm like, here I come in my school bus.
Well, yeah. And I think it's so true. Like you're a teacher, obviously you teach kids, and she was always like the DCC kids camp queen. And I could see you with that full house. So I hope, I hope it happens for you. But like you said, like you just learn to not plan, and you'll be so happy with just the family that God builds for you. So I'm excited to see all that. And I feel like we could talk about all of your teacher stuff too, and PB&J. Like if you guys haven't looked at their TikTok or anything, their videos are so cute, and they're doing great things in the whole teacher-student realm. So please like go check that out and just see what a well-rounded, great person she is. But I'm so glad, like, and thank you for being vulnerable and sharing just your story, because it's hard to talk about, but I do think it'll help so many people. And so I'm glad that you came to chat.
Well, thank you for having me. And I did want to say, like, if you are listening to this and you are struggling with that, or that's something that you're going through, or you have literally any questions, I am such an open book. Like, I will share anything. I've had like phone calls with people that like messaged me. I've like sent voice memos. I've just like talked through things. There's been a few people that have like been in my DMs and been like, hey, we're going through this, and like keep me updated. And then they have. And now there's like people that went through loss and now they're pregnant. And it's been such a like blessing to me that I've been able to talk to people about it. So that is something that you are struggling with, hit me up.
That's sweet of you to be like just genuine enough to kind of care about, any random message that comes through, like, what that person's going through, and
it's
able to help anybody and everybody. But I'm sure you'll do great things in
Thanks.
the future. I'm excited to stay up to date with your life and
all
retired
the
life. I get to join you.
I know, retired life. It's so fun. Being on this side is really fun.
Yeah.
I know it's scary at first, but it's a good time.
I'll babysit too.
I mean, anytime, please.
I know. Well, thank you so much. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode and got a lot out of it. We'll see you next time on Sweet as Any Podcast.
Bye.